I was staring at my phone in the Home Depot parking lot when my entire world shattered. Not from some dramatic confrontation or gut feeling, just a single screenshot from a number I didn't recognize. Thought you should know what your wife does at the Riverside Inn every Tuesday and Thursday. Room 237. Below the text was a photo timestamp dated from yesterday. My wife Amanda's silver Honda Accord parked outside a budget motel on the east side of town. The license plate was crystal clear. 7KJM449. The same plate I'd helped her register at the DMV 3 years ago. My hands started shaking. Tuesday and Thursday were her yoga nights. Had been for the past 4 months. I'd even bought her the expensive mat and designer athletic wear for Christmas. It was 3:47 p.m. on a Thursday. According to her location sharing, which she'd insisted we both enable for safety, she was at the Serenity Wellness Studio across town. I pulled up Google Maps. The Riverside Inn was 0.3 miles from that yoga studio. I sat there in my truck, bags of cabinet hardware in the passenger seat for the kitchen renovation we'd been planning. Our kitchen, our home, our 12-year marriage. The smart thing would have been to call a lawyer first. Document everything. Plan carefully. But rage and heartbreak don't care about smart. I started the engine and drove straight to the Riverside Inn. The motel was exactly the kind of place you'd expect. 2 stories of peeling paint and flickering neon, wedged between a pawn shop and a liquor store. Amanda's Honda sat in the lot, 3rd spot from the office. I parked 4 spaces down and killed the engine. Room 237 was on the 2nd floor. I could see it from where I sat. Curtains drawn, no movement visible. My heart hammered against my ribs. Part of me still hoped this was some terrible mistake. Maybe she was meeting a friend. Maybe there was an explanation. Then the door opened. Amanda stepped out first, adjusting her yoga pants, the expensive ones I'd bought her. Her hair was messy, not in the neat ponytail she always wore to actually work out. She was laughing at something, looking back into the room. A man followed her out. Tall, maybe 30, wearing a suit with the tie loosened. He grabbed her waist from behind and kissed her neck. She tilted her head back, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. The kind of smile we used to share before life got complicated, before my contracting business consumed my time, before we'd settled into comfortable routine. They stood there for maybe 30 seconds, completely absorbed in each other. Then he went back inside and she headed for her car, checking her phone as she walked. My phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. Running late, traffic is terrible. Home by 6:30, love you. I watched her drive away, still sitting frozen in my truck. The man emerged again 5 minutes later, climbed into a black Audi, and left in the opposite direction. That's when the shock wore off and the clarity hit. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a routine. Tuesday and Thursday. 4 months of yoga nights. 4 months of lies delivered with a smile and a kiss on the cheek. I drove home on autopilot, my mind racing through implications. We had a 9-year-old daughter, Emily. We had joint accounts, a mortgage, my business that she handled the books for. God, the books. She had access to everything. Instead of going home, I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and made a call to my buddy Derek, who'd gone through a divorce 2 years ago. I need a lawyer recommendation, I said when he picked up. The best one you know. Jesus, man, what happened? Amanda's cheating. I just watched her leave a motel room with some guy. She's been lying about yoga classes. Derek was quiet for a moment. Don't go home angry. Don't confront her yet. I'm serious, Tyler. You need to be smart about this. Let me text you a name. Patricia Vance. She's expensive, but she's a shark. Call her right now, today, before you do anything else. It's almost 5 on a Thursday. She works late, trust me. And Tyler? Don't tell Amanda anything, not until you've talked to Patricia. Check your bank accounts, your business accounts, everything. Do it right now while you're thinking clearly. I hung up and opened my banking app. Our joint checking looked normal. Then I checked the business account, the one Amanda managed as our bookkeeper. My stomach dropped. The balance should have been around $60,000. We just finished a major commercial job. Instead, it showed $18,000. I pulled up the transaction history with trembling fingers. Transfers. Dozens of them over the past 3 months. 500 here, 1,000 there, occasionally 2 or 3,000. All going to an account I didn't recognize. The descriptions were mundane. Supplies, subcontractor payment, materials, but I knew every subcontractor we worked with. I'd never heard of Beacon Consulting Services or Riverside Property Management. $42,000. Gone. I called the number Derek texted me. Vance Legal Group, this is Patricia. My name is Tyler Brooks. My wife is cheating on me and I think she's been stealing from our business. I need help. Can you be at my office in 20 minutes? I have a cancellation. I was there in 15. Patricia Vance was maybe 50, with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit. She sat me down, handed me water I didn't drink, and listened without interrupting as I spilled everything. The screenshot, the motel, the missing money, all of it. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. First thing, you did the right thing coming here before confronting her. Second thing, we're in California, which is a no-fault divorce state. But that doesn't mean the adultery is irrelevant, especially regarding custody and asset division. Third thing, if she's been embezzling from a business you own, that's a separate legal matter entirely. How much access does she have? Complete access. She's been doing the books for 6 years. I trusted her with everything. Patricia's expression didn't change. We need to secure your assets immediately, tonight, before she has any idea you know. I sat in Patricia's office for another 20 minutes while she made calls. First to a forensic accountant, then to someone she called my guy at the bank. Her tone was clipped, professional, like she'd done this 1,000 times before. We're freezing the business accounts tonight, she said, hanging up. You'll have access, she won't. The personal joint account is trickier. We can't freeze it without her knowledge, but we can drain it legally. Transfer everything to a new account in your name only. Do it tonight, before you go home. That feels smart? Patricia raised an eyebrow. Because it is. She's been stealing from you for months, Tyler. Maybe longer. You think she's going to stop just because you found out? I nodded slowly. My hands were still shaking. One more thing, Patricia said, sliding a business card across her desk. This is Kevin Wright. He's a private investigator. You need documentation of the affair. Photos, timeline, everything. California is no fault, but when we're talking about custody and asset division, a judge likes to know who's been lying and stealing. I took the card. It felt heavy. Call him tomorrow morning, she continued. He's expensive, but he's fast. And Tyler? She leaned forward, her expression serious. Don't confront her. Not yet. Not until we have everything locked down. Can you do that? I don't know. You have to. Go home, act normal. Sleep in the same bed if you have to, because the second she knows you know, she'll start moving money, deleting evidence, calling her own lawyer. We need to stay ahead of her. The drive home took 15 minutes. I stopped at the bank first, walked inside with my phone and my ID, and opened a new checking account. The woman behind the counter smiled like it was the most normal thing in the world. I transferred $18,000, everything left in our joint account, into the new one. My finger hesitated over the confirm button for maybe 3 seconds. Then I pressed it. Amanda's car was in the driveway when I got home. I sat in my truck for a moment, staring at the silver Honda, trying to remember what normal felt like. How did I usually walk in? What did I say? Did I kiss her hello? I couldn't remember. The house smelled like garlic and tomatoes. Amanda was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove, still wearing those same yoga pants from earlier. Her hair was damp now. She'd showered, washing him off. "Hey," she said, glancing over her shoulder. "You're late. Everything okay?" "Supply issue at the Jennings job," I said. The lie came easier than I expected. "Had to make some calls." She turned back to the stove. "Dinner's almost ready. Emily's at Sophie's. They're working on some school project. I said I'd pick her up at 8. "Okay." I walked past her, into the living room, and set my keys on the table. The house looked the same as it had this morning. Same furniture, same pictures on the walls. There was one of us from our anniversary last year. We'd gone to that Italian place downtown, the one with the candles on every table. Amanda was smiling in the photo, her head tilted toward mine. I wondered if she'd already been sleeping with him by then. "Tyler?" I turned. Amanda was standing in the doorway, wooden spoon in hand, watching me with a slight frown. "You sure you're okay? You seem weird." "Just tired." I forced something like a smile. "Long day." She studied me for another second, then shrugged. "Well, come eat. I made that pasta thing you like." Dinner was surreal. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the same way we had 1,000 times before. Amanda talked about her day, some issue with a vendor, a phone call with a client, something about needing to update our accounting software. She was so casual, so normal, like she hadn't spent the afternoon in a motel room with another man. "How was yoga?" I asked. She didn't even blink. "Good. Tiring. That new instructor really kicks our butts." She twirled pasta on her fork. "I'm so sore." "I'll bet," I thought. "You should come sometime," she continued. "Seriously, it'd be good for your back." "Maybe." After dinner, she left to pick up Emily. I stood at the window and watched her pull out of the driveway, then immediately went upstairs to our bedroom. I didn't know what I was looking for. Evidence, I guess. Proof. Something concrete beyond what I'd already seen. Her phone was probably with her, but her laptop was on the dresser. I opened it. No password. She'd never bothered with one. Her email was already logged in. I scrolled through her inbox. Bills, spam, newsletters. Nothing obvious. Then I checked her sent folder. There. An email from 3 weeks ago, sent to an address I didn't recognize. Email protected. The subject line was blank. The message said, "Can't wait to see you Thursday. Same place?" The response time-stamped an hour later. Counting the minutes. I kept scrolling. More emails going back months. Most were short, vague. "Last night was amazing. Thinking about you. I wish we didn't have to hide this." Then I found one from 2 months ago, longer than the others. "I know this is complicated," it read. "But I meant what I said. When the time is right, we'll figure it out. You deserve better than what you have. He doesn't see you the way I do." My hands clenched on the edge of the laptop. There was an attachment, a photo. I clicked it. Amanda, lying in bed somewhere I didn't recognize. She was smiling at the camera, her hair spread across a pillow. She wasn't wearing anything. I closed the laptop before I put my fist through the screen. Downstairs, I heard the front door open. Amanda's voice, bright and cheerful. "We're home!" Emily's footsteps pounded up the stairs. She burst into the bedroom, backpack bouncing. "Dad, guess what? I got an A on my science project." I turned, forcing my face into something that wouldn't scare her. "That's great, kiddo. I'm proud of you." Sophie and I built a volcano. It actually erupted and everything. She was bouncing on her toes, grinning. "Can you help me with my math homework after I change?" "Sure." She ran off to her room. Amanda appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame. "You okay with that?" "I need to finish some invoices." "Yeah, no problem." She smiled, walked over, and kissed my cheek. Her lips felt like ice. Thanks, babe. I helped Emily with her homework at the kitchen table while Amanda worked on her laptop in the living room. Fractions and word problems. Normal, mundane, safe. Emily chattered about her day, about Sophie's new hamster, about the upcoming field trip to the Science Museum. Can you come? She asked, looking up at me with hopeful eyes. It's next Friday. They need parent volunteers. I'll check my schedule, I said. Mom says she's too busy with work stuff. Emily wrinkled her nose. But you're not, right? I glanced toward the living room, where Amanda was typing away, completely absorbed. I'll make it work, I told Emily. After she went to bed, Amanda and I sat on the couch. She scrolled through her phone while some cooking show played on TV. I pretended to watch, but I was really watching her. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear. The way she smiled at something on her screen, probably a text from him. I'm going to bed, she said eventually, standing and stretching. You coming? In a bit. Want to finish this episode? Okay. She leaned down and kissed the top of my head. Don't stay up too late. I waited until I heard the bedroom door close, then pulled out Kevin Wright's business card. It was almost 11, too late to call. I sent a text instead. Patricia Vance referred me. Need to discuss a case. Available tomorrow? The response came 30 seconds later. 9 a.m., my office. Address below. I sat in the dark living room for another hour, listening to the house settle around me. Upstairs, Amanda was probably asleep by now, curled up on her side of the bed like nothing was wrong. I thought about Patricia's question. Could I do this? Could I sleep next to her, eat breakfast with her, pretend everything was fine while the walls closed in? I had to. For Emily. For what was left of my business. For whatever came next. I turned off the TV and headed upstairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. I spent Friday morning at the office like it was any other day. Answered emails, called suppliers, reviewed 3 job estimates for bathroom renovations in Riverside. The normalcy felt like wearing someone else's skin. Kevin Wright texted at 10:23 a.m. Subject photographed entering Riverside Inn 10:07. Same vehicle. Will maintain surveillance. I stared at the message. Friday morning. Not even waiting for their usual Tuesday-Thursday schedule anymore. My phone buzzed again. Amanda. Can you pick up Emily from school today? Running errands. I typed back, sure, what errands? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Just some shopping, boring stuff, love you. The exclamation point made my jaw clench. I pocketed the phone and went back to pretending my life wasn't imploding. Patricia called at noon. The forensic accountant finished the preliminary review. It's worse than we thought. I stepped outside into the parking lot. How much worse? $63,000 over the past 8 months. She's been careful, small amounts, different fake vendors, spacing them out. But it's systematic, premeditated. 8 months. The affair was 4 months old according to the motel pattern. She'd been stealing from me twice as long as she'd been sleeping with him. What's our next move? We wait for the PI's report. Document everything. You're doing great, Tyler. I know this is hell, but the longer you maintain normal behavior, the stronger our position. Normal behavior. Right. I picked up Emily at 3:15. She climbed into the truck with her backpack covered in unicorn patches, chattering about some drama with her friend Madison. I made the appropriate responses, asked the right questions, felt like a robot programmed to imitate a father. Where's Mom? Emily asked as I pulled out of the school lot. Running errands. She'll be home later. Can we get ice cream? I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. 9 years old. No idea her world was about to detonate. Sure, kiddo. We went to the place on Maple Street she loved, the one with the hand-dipped cones. She got mint chip. I got nothing, told her I wasn't hungry. She didn't notice. Too busy telling me about her science project on volcanoes. My phone buzzed. Kevin. Subject departed 3:42 p.m. Comprehensive photo documentation obtained. Can meet tonight if you're available. I texted back. 7 p.m. Coffee shop on Henderson. Emily was still talking about baking soda and vinegar when we got home. I helped her set up her homework at the kitchen table, then retreated to my office and closed the door. The business account statements were spread across my desk. I'd printed them all, highlighted every fraudulent transaction in yellow. $63,000. Money I'd earned sweating through 100-degree attics and crawling under houses. Money that should have gone toward Emily's college fund, toward the vacation Amanda kept saying we should take, toward the kitchen renovation she'd been planning. Instead, it went to what? Financing her affair? New clothes to impress him? Hotel rooms? I heard the front door open. Amanda's voice, bright and cheerful. I'm home. I shoved the statements into a drawer and walked out to the kitchen. She was setting shopping bags on the counter. Actual shopping bags this time, from Nordstrom and Macy's. Successful errands? I asked. She smiled. Found some great deals. Oh, and I picked up that coffee you like. The dark roast from Whole Foods. The domesticity of it was obscene. She'd spent the morning in a motel room with another man, then gone shopping and picked up my favorite coffee. Thanks, I said. She kissed my cheek. Her perfume was different, not the one she usually wore, probably reapplied after showering at the motel. How was your day? She asked, pulling groceries from another bag. Fine, busy. Got 3 new estimate requests. That's great, honey. She was arranging vegetables in the crisper drawer, her back to me. Oh, I've been meaning to ask. Did you see that charge from Peterson Plumbing Supply? I couldn't remember if we actually used them on the Riverside project. The audacity was staggering. Peterson Plumbing Supply was one of her fake vendors. She'd written herself a check for $4,200 3 weeks ago using that name. Yeah, I said, keeping my voice level. That was for the Anderson job, specialty fixtures. Right, okay. Just wanted to make sure I had it categorized correctly for taxes. She was testing me, seeing if I'd noticed. Or maybe she genuinely thought she was that good at this, that I'd never catch on. I watched her move around the kitchen, putting away groceries, wiping down counters. 12 years of marriage. I'd memorized every gesture, every expression. The way she tucked her hair behind her left ear when concentrating. The little hum she made when she was content. All of it suddenly felt like evidence I'd misread, a language I'd never actually understood. Emily wandered in with her math worksheet. Dad, I don't get number 7. I sat down with her, walked her through long division while Amanda started dinner. The 3 of us in our kitchen playing house while everything underneath rotted. Dinner was chicken stir-fry. Amanda talked about wanting to repaint the guest bathroom. Emily showed us a drawing she'd made in art class. I contributed appropriate comments, asked follow-up questions, performed the role of husband and father while counting down the minutes until I could meet Kevin. At 6:45, I stood up. I need to run to Home Depot. Forgot to grab something for tomorrow's job. Amanda looked up from loading the dishwasher. Now? Can't it wait until morning? Need it first thing. Won't be long. I kissed Emily's head, grabbed my keys. Amanda was watching me with something I couldn't quite read in her expression. Suspicion, concern, or just mild annoyance that I was leaving her with bedtime duty? Don't be too late, she said. Won't be. Kevin was already at the coffee shop when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a manila folder in front of him. He was maybe 45, gray at the temples, wearing jeans and a polo shirt. Looked like every other dad in the place. I sat down across from him. He slid the folder over without preamble. She's not being careful, he said. Same motel, same room, same time frame. I've got photos from 3 different days now. Wednesday, Thursday, and today. Time-stamped, geotagged. Her vehicle, his vehicle, both of them entering and exiting together. I opened the folder. The top photo showed Amanda's Honda in the motel parking lot, license plate clearly visible. The next showed her walking toward room 237, looking at her phone. Then one of a man in business casual meeting her at the door. I studied his face. Mid-30s, sandy hair, decent looking. Nothing special. Just some guy. I got a plate on his vehicle, Kevin said, sliding another paper across. Black Audi A4, registered to a Jason Miller, address in Westlake. I ran a basic background. He works in pharmaceutical sales for Brennan Medical Supply. Jason Miller. Finally, a name to attach to the email address. Brennan Medical Supply, I repeated. That's the company Amanda claimed to have worked for 3 years ago before she started doing my books full-time. Kevin's eyebrows went up. She told you she worked there? Never directly, but she had it on her LinkedIn profile. Said she did their accounts receivable for 6 months. He pulled out his phone, typed something. Want me to verify that? Yeah. We sat in silence while he made some calls. I flipped through the rest of the photos. Amanda and Jason leaving the motel together, his hand on her lower back. The two of them standing by his Audi, her laughing at something he said. One of them kissing before getting into separate vehicles. The coffee shop sounds faded into white noise. Some Taylor Swift song played overhead. A kid at the next table was having a meltdown about not getting a cookie. Kevin hung up. She never worked for Brennan Medical Supply. I talked to their HR department. No record of an Amanda Brooks ever being employed there. I looked up from the photos. What? No employment record. She lied about working there. The pieces rearranged themselves in my head. Amanda had that job on her resume 3 years ago, right before she started handling my books full-time. I'd never questioned it. Why would I? She was my wife. So how does she know Jason Miller? I asked. Kevin shrugged. That's the question. Could be she met him some other way and added the company to her resume to make it look legitimate. Or maybe he worked there 3 years ago and they've known each other longer than 4 months. Longer than 4 months. The affair could have been going on for years. My phone buzzed. Amanda. Emily wants to say goodnight. Where are you? I texted back. Still at Home Depot. Be home in 20. Kevin gathered the photos back into the folder. I'll keep digging into their connection. But you've got more than enough here for your attorney. Yeah. I drove home with the folder on the passenger seat, past the Home Depot I hadn't actually gone to, back to the house where my wife was probably tucking our daughter into bed and reading her a story about princesses or dragons or whatever Emily was into this week. The lights were on in Emily's bedroom window. I sat in the truck for a minute, watching the warm glow, thinking about volcanoes and how they build pressure underground for years before everything explodes. Then I grabbed the folder and went inside. The corporate party was Amanda's idea. She'd mentioned it 3 weeks ago, some holiday thing her client was throwing. Spouses invited. I'd barely paid attention at the time, still deep in the performance of normalcy, while Kevin documented her movements and Patricia built the case. Now, standing in the lobby of the Westfield Hotel's banquet hall with a glass of cheap wine in my hand, I wondered if this was a mistake. Amanda stood 15 feet away, laughing with a group of women near the hors d'oeuvres table. She wore a navy dress I'd never seen before, her hair done up in a way that probably cost $100 at that salon she'd started going to 6 months ago. Another expense I'd need to track. You must be Tyler. I turned. A woman in her mid-30s extended her hand, smiling warmly. She had red hair pulled back in a bun and wore a green dress that looked like it came from Target. That's me, I said, shaking her hand. Rachel Foster. I work with Amanda in accounting. She gestured toward the bar. This is my husband, Brian. Brian nodded, already looking bored. I recognized the expression. Another spouse dragged to a work function he didn't care about. "Nice to meet you both," I said automatically. Rachel leaned in slightly, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. "I have to say, I'm so glad to finally meet you. Amanda talked about you constantly at her last job." Everything stopped. The ambient noise of the party, the conversations, the music, the clinking glasses, all of it faded to static. I felt my fingers tighten around the wine glass. Her last job? I kept my voice level, casual. "At Brennan Medical Supply." Rachel's smile widened. "We worked together there for almost 2 years before she left. When I saw the opening here, I jumped at it. Couldn't believe we'd end up working together again." Brian was checking his phone, completely uninterested. Rachel didn't notice the way my jaw had locked, the way I'd stopped breathing. "Small world," I managed. "Right? And she was always showing us pictures of your projects. That kitchen renovation you did last year? The one with the custom island? Gorgeous work." Rachel glanced over at Amanda, who was still oblivious to our conversation. "She was so proud of you. Always said you were building something real, you know? Not just a business, but a legacy for Emily." The wine tasted like acid. I set the glass down on a nearby table before I could drop it. "When did you say you two worked together?" "Let's see." Rachel tilted her head, thinking. "I started at Brennan in January 2 years ago, and Amanda was already there. She left that November, so almost 2 years, yeah? Then I came here about 4 months ago, and boom, there she was in accounting. Felt like fate. 4 months ago. Right when the affair started, according to Kevin's timeline. Right when Amanda suddenly had a new client that required Tuesday and Thursday meetings." "Did she ever mention why she left Brennan?" I asked. Rachel's expression shifted slightly, something cautious entering her eyes. "You know, she never really said, just that it was time for a change. Better opportunity, that kind of thing." She paused. "She didn't tell you about working there?" I could have lied, should have lied. But something in me wanted to see where this went. "She might have mentioned it," I said carefully. "I handle a lot of projects. Sometimes the details blur together." Rachel nodded, but I could see the wheels turning. She was smart enough to sense something off in my response. "Well, anyway," she said, her tone brightening artificially. "It's great to finally put a face to the name. Brian and I should probably make the rounds. You know how these things are." They moved away, and I stood there in the middle of the banquet hall, my mind racing. Amanda had worked at Brennan Medical Supply for almost 2 years. She'd never mentioned it, not once in our 12 years of marriage. I'd seen her resume when she started doing my book 6 years ago. There'd been a gap in her employment history, but she'd explained it away as time she took off when Emily was younger, picking up freelance bookkeeping work here and there. A lie. The whole thing had been a lie. And now she was working at some company Rachel had moved to 4 months ago. The same 4 months Amanda had been sleeping with Jason Miller. Jason Miller, who worked at Brennan Medical Supply. The room felt too small, too hot. I needed air. I walked toward the exit, passing Amanda's group without making eye contact. She didn't notice me leave. Why would she? She was too busy performing her own version of normalcy, playing the role of devoted wife at a corporate function, while the man she was screwing was probably texting her right now. The hotel hallway was cooler, quieter. I pulled out my phone and called Kevin. He answered on the second ring. "Tyler, everything okay? I need you to dig into Amanda's employment history, specifically Brennan Medical Supply. She worked there for almost 2 years, ending about 2 years ago." I heard the scratch of pen on paper. Kevin always took notes by hand during calls. "Brennan Medical," he repeated. "That's where Jason Miller works." "Yeah." A pause. "You think they knew each other before the affair started?" I think she lied about ever working there. I think she's been lying about a lot of things for a very long time. I leaned against the wall, watching a couple in formal wear walk past toward the elevators. Can you find out when she worked there? Who she worked with? Whether she and Jason overlapped? I can pull employment records, but it might take a few days. HR departments don't like sharing information, even with investigators. Do what you can. I'll pay whatever it costs. I'll start tomorrow, Kevin said. You at the party now? Yeah. You going to confront her about this? I thought about Amanda in that navy dress, laughing with her coworkers. Thought about Rachel's innocent comment, the way she'd looked at me when I couldn't confirm basic facts about my wife's work history. Not yet, I said. Not until I know everything. Smart. Let me work on this. I'll call you when I have something. I ended the call and stood there for a long moment, staring at my phone's dark screen. 2 years at Brennan Medical Supply. 2 years working in the same building as Jason Miller, probably seeing him in break rooms and staff meetings and company parties just like this one. How long had they been sleeping together? Was the 4-month timeline another lie? Had the affair started back then, when she was still working there? Had she left because the relationship got too complicated, too risky? Or had she left because I'd asked her to start handling my business accounts full-time? Had I inadvertently interrupted whatever they'd had going? The embezzlement made more sense now. She hadn't just been stealing money on impulse, she'd been planning, setting up fake vendors, siphoning funds over 8 months. That took forethought, preparation. Maybe she'd been planning to leave all along. Maybe the money was her exit fund, and Jason was her exit plan. I walked back into the banquet hall. Amanda had moved to a different group, this one including several men in suits. She was animated, gesturing as she told some story. One of the men laughed, and she touched his arm briefly. That casual contact she was so good at, the kind that made people feel special. She'd touched Jason's arm like that, probably. Had smiled at him the same way across conference tables at Brennan Medical Supply. Had maybe started the affair in some supply closet or after hours in an empty office before it graduated to room 237 at the Riverside Inn. Rachel was watching me from across the room. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away. She knew something was wrong. Maybe she'd go home tonight and tell Brian about the weird conversation, about how Amanda's husband didn't seem to know she'd worked at Brennan. Maybe Brian would tell her to stay out of it, that it wasn't their business. Or maybe Rachel would mention it to Amanda tomorrow at work, casual, concerned. Hey, I met your husband last night. Nice guy. We were talking about when we worked together at Brennan, and he seemed a little confused about the timeline. Amanda would panic. She'd realize I was asking questions, that the facade was cracking. I needed to move faster. I pulled out my phone again and texted Patricia. Need to meet Monday morning. New information about wife's employment history. Changes timeline of deception. Her response came 30 seconds later. 9 a.m. my office. I pocketed the phone and grabbed another glass of wine from a passing server. Amanda finally noticed me, her eyes finding mine across the room. She smiled. That same warm smile she'd been giving me for 12 years, and raised her glass slightly in a small toast. I raised mine back. 2 people pretending everything was fine, performing for an audience that had no idea the marriage was already over. The drive home from the corporate party felt longer than usual. Amanda sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone, humming along to some pop song on the radio. Emily was at my mom's for the night, a sleepover she'd been excited about all week. That was nice, Amanda said. I think people really liked the venue. Yeah, I kept my eyes on the road. Rachel seems friendly. She is, total sweetheart. We've been having lunch together a few times a week. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Rachel Foster, the colleague who'd just blown apart whatever story Amanda had been maintaining about her work history. The woman who'd smiled at me and said she'd heard so much about me from Amanda's time at her last job. Brennan Medical Supply, where Jason Miller worked, where Amanda had apparently spent nearly 2 years of her life without ever mentioning it to me. She mentioned you talked about me a lot. At your last job. Amanda's humming stopped. Just for a second. Then she laughed, light and easy. Oh, you know how it is. Office gossip, talking about our weekends and stuff. Right, I signaled for our exit. Which job was that again? She didn't look up from her phone. The job where you talked about me so much. Before you started doing my books full-time? Oh, just that little accounting firm I worked at. Remember? The one on Maple Street. She waved her hand dismissively. Boring place. That's why I was so happy when you asked me to handle your business accounts instead. The lie came out so smooth. So practiced. Like she'd been ready for this exact question. I'd never asked her to handle my business accounts. She'd offered. 3 years ago, right around the time she would have left Brennan Medical Supply, she'd suggested she could save us money by doing my bookkeeping instead of paying an outside firm. I'd thought it was a great idea. Keep it in the family, save a few $100 a month. Now I knew better. She'd needed a reason to quit Brennan. Maybe the affair with Jason had gotten too risky. Maybe someone had noticed. Or maybe she'd seen an opportunity. Access to my business accounts, my trust, my complete ignorance of where she'd actually been working. You never mentioned working anywhere else, I said carefully. Amanda finally looked up from her phone. What do you mean? I told you about the accounting firm. Did you? Tyler. She laughed again, but this time it had an edge. Why are we talking about this? It was years ago. Just trying to remember, that's all. She studied my face for a moment, then went back to her phone. You're being weird. I pulled into our driveway and killed the engine. The house looked exactly the same as it had when we'd left 2 hours ago. Same porch light, same welcome mat, same everything. But I was seeing it differently now. Seeing how much of my life had been built on things Amanda had simply chosen not to tell me. My phone buzzed as we walked inside. A text from Kevin Wright. Need to talk. Call when you can. I'm going to change, Amanda said, heading for the stairs. Want to watch a movie or something? We've got the whole night to ourselves. Sure. Let me make a quick work call first. She paused on the third step. Now? It's almost 9. Client's having an issue with the permits on the Riverside project. Won't take long. Another lie between us. We were getting good at this. I waited until I heard the bedroom door close, then stepped out onto the back deck and dialed Kevin's number. He answered on the first ring. You at home? Yeah, what's going on? Got some interesting information today. Ran a deeper background on Amanda's employment history, cross-referenced with Jason Miller's timeline at Brennan Medical Supply. I leaned against the deck railing. The neighbor's motion sensor light clicked on, illuminating their empty yard. And? Amanda started at Brennan in March, 8 years ago. Administrative assistant in their sales department. Jason Miller started there 2 months later, May of the same year. Both worked there until Amanda left in November 6 years ago. 6 years ago? Not 3. Not a little accounting firm on Maple Street. She worked there for nearly 2.5 years, I said. Correct. And here's where it gets interesting. Jason was promoted to senior sales rep in October of that year. 1 month before Amanda quit. I pulled some social media archives, old Facebook posts, that kind of thing. Found photos from a Brennan Medical Supply Company picnic, summer 6 years ago. Amanda and Jason are in several of them. Together. The deck seemed to tilt slightly under my feet. How together? Nothing explicit, but body language tells a story. They're standing close, laughing. In one photo, his hands on her lower back. 6 years ago, Emily had been 3 years old. I'd been building the business, working 60-hour weeks, trying to establish myself as a reliable contractor in a competitive market. Amanda had been home with Emily during the days, working part-time in the evenings and weekends at what I'd thought was a small accounting firm. Except she hadn't been at an accounting firm. She'd been at Brennan Medical Supply, with Jason Miller. You think they've been involved that long? I asked. Can't say for sure, but the timeline's suspicious. She works with him for 2 years, quits suddenly right after he gets promoted. Then 3 years later, she's meeting him at the Riverside Inn every Tuesday and Thursday like clockwork. Kevin paused. There's one more thing. I contacted someone who used to work in HR at Brennan. Off-the-record friendly conversation. She remembered Amanda. Said there was some kind of incident before she left. What kind of incident? She wouldn't give details, but she mentioned the company had to reinforce some policies about workplace relationships. Amanda left 2 weeks later. No exit interview, just a resignation letter. So they'd been caught, or nearly caught, and Amanda had quit to avoid whatever consequences might have followed. Then she'd come home and suggested she take over my business accounting. Helpful wife. Devoted mother. Never mentioning where she'd really been working, who she'd been working with, or why she'd really left. There's no way to prove they were involved back then, Kevin continued. But the pattern fits. Workplace affair, forced separation, reconnection years later. It happens more often than you'd think. She lied about all of it, I said. Not just the affair, everything. Yeah, and that's going to matter in court. Pattern of deception, financial fraud, ongoing infidelity. Patricia's going to have a field day with this. The bedroom light came on upstairs. Through the window, I could see Amanda's shadow moving around, probably changing into her pajamas. Getting comfortable for our movie night. Our normal Friday evening together. I need to tell Patricia, I said. Already sent her the employment records. She'll have them first thing Monday morning. Kevin's voice softened slightly. How you holding up? I'm fine. Tyler. I'm fine, I repeated. Just need to keep things normal until we're ready to move. Shouldn't be much longer. Another week, maybe 2, and we'll have everything documented. Then Patricia can file. 2 more weeks. 14 more days of pretending I didn't know my wife had been lying to me for 6 years. That the affair wasn't 4 months old. It might be 6 years old, just with a 3-year intermission. Thanks, Kevin. Hang in there. I ended the call and stood on the deck for another minute, letting the cool night air clear my head. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. A car drove past, headlights sweeping across our front yard. Normal suburban Friday night sounds. The sliding door opened behind me. Amanda stepped out, wearing one of my old t-shirts and cotton shorts. Hey, you okay? Yeah, just finishing up. She moved closer, slipping her arms around my waist from behind. Her chin rested on my shoulder. Client stuff sorted out? For now. Good. She squeezed me gently. Come inside, I'm cold. I turned to face her. In the dim light from the kitchen, she looked exactly like the woman I'd married 12 years ago. Same smile, same eyes. Same person I'd trusted with everything. My business, my finances, my daughter, my life. Except she wasn't that person. Maybe she'd never been that person. Amanda, I said slowly. Where did you work before you started doing my books? Her smile didn't waver. We already talked about this in the car, honey. The accounting firm on Maple Street. Why? Just wanted to make sure I remembered right. You're being really weird tonight. She kissed my cheek. Come on, let's watch that movie. She headed back inside, leaving me alone on the deck. Brennan Medical Supply. Jason Miller. 6 years of lies. I pulled out my phone and texted Patricia. Rachel Foster mentioned Amanda's last job tonight. Amanda lied about it to my face twice. Kevin has the details. Her response came 30 seconds later. Perfect. More evidence of deception strengthens our case significantly. Then another message. Document everything she says. Dates, times, exact words. The more lies we can prove, the better. I looked through the sliding glass door. Amanda was on the couch, scrolling through Netflix, completely relaxed, completely confident in her lies. 2 more weeks. Then she'd find out exactly how much those lies were going to cost her. I went inside and sat down next to my wife to watch a movie. The drive home from the party felt longer than it should have. Amanda sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone, humming along to the radio like nothing had happened. Like Rachel Foster hadn't just blown a hole through 6 years of carefully constructed lies. That was nice, Amanda said. I think people really liked the appetizers I brought. I kept my eyes on the road. Yeah. Rachel seems sweet. A little chatty, but sweet. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. She mentioned you worked together before. Amanda's humming stopped, just for a second. Oh, did she? I don't really remember her from Brennan. There were a lot of people there. The lie came so easily, so smoothly, like she'd had it ready just in case. She seemed to remember you pretty well, I said. Well, I was only there a short time. Temp position, really. Nothing worth mentioning. She glanced over at me. Why? What did she say? Just that you talked about me a lot. Amanda laughed. The sound made my stomach turn. Of course I did. I was probably boring everyone to death about my wonderful husband. I pulled into our driveway and killed the engine. Amanda was already unbuckling her seatbelt, checking her reflection in the visor mirror. I'm going to change, she said. That dress was killing my feet. I watched her walk into the house, her heels clicking on the pavement, her phone still in her hand. Probably already texting Jason, probably warning him that someone from Brennan had surfaced. Inside, I found Emily in the living room, building something elaborate with her Legos. She looked up when I came in. How was the party? She asked. Boring, I said. Lots of grown-up talk. Where's Mom? Upstairs changing. Emily nodded and went back to her Legos. I stood there watching her for a moment. This kid who had no idea her entire world was about to implode. She looked so much like Amanda. Same dark hair, same narrow chin. But she had my eyes. My grandmother's eyes, actually. Blue-gray, like storm clouds. My phone buzzed. Kevin. Call me when you can. Found something. I went out to the garage, closed the door behind me. Kevin picked up on the first ring. Rachel Foster just did you a huge favor, he said. I know. Amanda worked at Brennan for almost 2 years. Right. But here's what's interesting. I pulled Amanda's employment records. She wasn't a temp. She was full-time, salaried position in their accounting department, started in March 2016, terminated November 2017. 20 months. I leaned against my workbench. Terminated? Not laid off, not resigned. Terminated. And according to my contact there, it was related to a workplace relationship that violated company policy. Specifically, a relationship with someone in a position of authority. Jason Miller. Jason Miller was a senior sales manager at the time. Amanda reported to the accounting supervisor, but Miller had oversight on several accounts she managed. Company policy prohibits relationships between employees where there's any reporting structure overlap. So they fired her. They gave her the option to resign or be terminated. She chose termination, probably because it came with a severance package. $12,000, signed NDA included. $12,000. I wondered if that money had ever made it into our joint account, or if Amanda had hidden that too. There's more, Kevin said. I talked to someone who worked there at the time. Said the whole thing was messy. Apparently Miller was married when the affair started. His wife found out, threatened to go to HR, and the company had to step in. Miller kept his job because he was bringing in major contracts, Amanda was expendable. Jesus. Yeah? But here's the kicker. Miller's wife divorced him in early 2018, 6 months after Amanda left Brennan. I did the math in my head. Amanda had come to me in December 2017, right after leaving Brennan, and offered to take over my business accounting. Said she wanted to help, wanted us to work together more. I'd thought it was sweet. Romantic even. So she loses her job, I said slowly. Loses Jason because his wife finds out and comes running back to me. Looks that way, and then 3 years later she reconnects with him. Maybe he reached out when his divorce was final. Maybe she never really stopped. I thought about the timeline. Emily was born in 2016. Amanda had gotten pregnant right after we got married. She'd been working at Brennan while she was pregnant, while Emily was a baby. Had she been sleeping with Jason Miller the whole time? Can you find out when they reconnected? I asked. I'm working on it. Miller's phone records would tell us, but those require a subpoena. I've got someone checking their social media history, seeing if there's any digital trail. What about the money? The $63,000? Patricia's forensic accountant is going through everything. Should have a full report by Monday. But Tyler, if Amanda's been planning this for years, if she's been stealing from you since she started doing your books, it's going to be a lot more than $63,000. I closed my eyes. 6 years. She'd been doing my accounting for 6 years. How much are we talking? Hard to say until we see the full audit, but if she's been skimming even a modest amount every month for 6 years, could be $200,000, could be more. The garage door opened. Amanda stood there in yoga pants and one of my old t-shirts, her hair pulled back. Who are you talking to? She asked. I held up my phone. Kevin. He's got a question about the Miller job. Amanda's face didn't change, but I saw her shoulders tense. The Miller job? Yeah, the renovation on Oak Street. He's asking about the tile work. Oh. She relaxed slightly. Well, don't be too long. I'm making popcorn. Thought we could watch a movie with Emily. Sure, be right in. She closed the door. I waited until I heard her footsteps fade. I gotta go, I told Kevin. Be careful. If Rachel mentions your conversation to anyone at Brennan, word might get back to Amanda. I know. And Tyler, don't do anything stupid. We're close. The forensic audit, the photos, the employment history, it's all coming together. Just hold on a little longer. I hung up and stood there in the garage, surrounded by my tools and half-finished projects. This was supposed to be my space, my refuge. But Amanda had been in here too, going through my files, doctoring my books, stealing from me while I built cabinets and installed countertops and trusted her completely. The door opened again. This time it was Emily. Dad? Mom says the popcorn's ready. I looked at my daughter, 9 years old, holding a bowl of popcorn, smiling at me. In a few days, maybe a week, I was going to have to explain to her why Mommy wasn't living here anymore. Why everything was different. Why I couldn't fix this the way I fixed broken cabinets and leaky faucets. What movie are we watching? I asked. Mom says I can pick. I'm thinking Encanto. Again? It's a good movie, Dad. I followed her inside. Amanda was on the couch, a blanket across her lap, looking like the perfect wife and mother. She smiled when she saw me. Come sit, she said, patting the cushion next to her. I sat down. Emily settled between us, clutching her popcorn. Amanda reached over and squeezed my hand, her fingers lacing through mine. The same hand that had signed fake invoices. The same hand that had touched Jason Miller. The movie started. Emily sang along to the opening song. Amanda laughed at all the right parts, her head resting on my shoulder. And I sat there, watching my family fall apart in slow motion, counting down the hours until Monday when Patricia's forensic accountant would tell me exactly how much my wife had stolen, exactly how long she'd been planning to destroy everything we'd built. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Patricia. Preliminary numbers are in. Call me tomorrow. You're going to want to sit down for this. Amanda's hand tightened around mine. You okay? She whispered. You seem tense. I looked at her. Really looked at her. At the woman I'd been married to for 12 years, who'd given me a daughter, who'd worked beside me and slept beside me and lied to me for 6 years straight. Just tired, I said. She kissed my cheek. We should go to bed early tonight. I nodded and turned back to the movie, already knowing I wouldn't sleep. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in late April, exactly 6 months after I'd received that first anonymous text. Patricia had warned me it would be ugly. She was right. Amanda fought everything, denied the affair until Kevin's photographs made denial impossible, then claimed it was a recent mistake, a moment of weakness. She denied the embezzlement until the forensic accountant presented 247 pages of documented fraud spanning 6 years. The final number was $186,000, money siphoned from my business through fake vendors, padded invoices, and phantom expenses while I'd worked myself to exhaustion building something I thought was ours. The judge wasn't impressed by her tears or her attorney's arguments about rehabilitation and second chances. California might be a no-fault state, but fraud is fraud. The court ordered her to repay every cent, with interest. Her wages would be garnished for the foreseeable future. She lost any claim to my business, to our house, to the retirement accounts she'd been counting on. I got primary custody of Emily. Amanda got supervised visitation every other weekend, at least until she completed the court-ordered counseling. Emily took it hard at first. What 9-year-old wouldn't? But kids are resilient in ways adults forget how to be. She adjusted, started smiling again, stopped asking when mommy was coming home. Jason Miller disappeared from the picture entirely. Turns out he was married again, had been the whole time he was meeting Amanda at the Riverside Inn. His second wife filed for divorce 3 weeks after Kevin's report went public. Last I heard, he'd moved to Arizona, probably looking for a fresh start somewhere his reputation hadn't followed him yet. Amanda moved into a studio apartment in the bad part of town, the kind of place she used to drive past and call depressing. She got a job doing data entry for $16 an hour. Her LinkedIn profile disappeared. So did most of her friends. Funny how people distance themselves when the truth comes out. Rachel Foster sent me a message on Facebook a month after the divorce was final. Just said she was sorry, that she'd had no idea, that if she'd known what mentioning Brennan would lead to, she wasn't sure she would have said anything. I told her not to apologize. She'd done me a favor, even if she hadn't meant to. Sometimes the truth comes from the strangest places. The business recovered. Turns out when you're not bleeding $3,000 a month to fake vendors, profit margins improve dramatically. I hired a real accountant, a 60-year-old guy named Walter who wears bow ties and sends monthly reports that actually make sense. I hired 2 more guys, expanded into commercial work, stopped working 70-hour weeks. Emily and I fell into a new rhythm. Breakfast together every morning. Homework at the kitchen table. Weekend projects where she'd hand me tools and tell me about school drama and ask questions I didn't always know how to answer. She stopped mentioning the yoga studio. Stopped asking why mommy had lied. One Saturday in June, almost 8 months after everything fell apart, Emily and I were at Home Depot picking out paint for her bedroom. She wanted purple. Not lavender, not violet. Purple. We were debating shades when she looked up at me. Dad? Yeah, kiddo. Are you happy now? The question caught me off guard. I looked down at her, at this kid holding paint swatches, her hair in a messy ponytail, wearing one of my old work shirts like a dress. Yeah, I said, and meant it. I am. She nodded, satisfied, and went back to comparing colors. I thought about that moment later, after she'd gone to bed, while I sat on the back deck with a beer and watched fireflies blink in the yard. Happy wasn't quite the right word. Content, maybe? Relieved. The kind of peace that comes from knowing exactly where you stand, even if the ground beneath you had to crack open first. The anonymous text that started everything? Turned out it was from Jason Miller's second wife. She'd hired her own PI, found out about Amanda, and decided I deserved to know. We never spoke directly. She sent one more message after the divorce was final. "I hope you and your daughter are okay." I wrote back, "We will be." And we were. The house feels different now, lighter somehow, despite everything it cost to get here. I changed the locks, repainted the bedroom, replaced the mattress. Erased the physical traces of Amanda's presence one project at a time. Emily helped me plant new flowers in the front yard, bright yellow marigolds that she said looked happy. I don't date, don't even think about it. Maybe someday, but not now. Now is for rebuilding. The business, the bank accounts, the trust Emily and I have in each other. For teaching her that when people lie to you, when they betray you, you don't have to accept it. You can walk away. You can choose yourself. She's learning that lesson younger than I did, but maybe that's not the worst thing. Sometimes I drive past the Riverside Inn. They tore it down last month, making way for some chain restaurant. Room 237 is gone, along with whatever happened there. I don't feel anything when I see the empty lot. No anger, no sadness. Just a vague sense that it belongs to a different life. One I don't live anymore. Patricia called last week to tell me Amanda had made her first restitution payment. $63. At that rate, she'd be paying me back for the next 40 years. I told Patricia to set up a trust fund for Emily with whatever came in. Let something good come from it. The truth is, I don't need Amanda's money. The business is thriving. Emily and I are fine, better than fine. What I needed was to learn that trust isn't the same as blindness. That love doesn't mean accepting lies. That sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you turns out to be the door you didn't know you needed to walk through. I'm on the other side of that door now. The air's clearer here. Emily and I painted her room purple last weekend, the exact shade she wanted. She stood back when we finished, hands on her hips, surveying our work with the critical eye of a future architect or interior designer or whatever she decides to be. "Perfect," she declared. I looked at the walls, at the drop cloths on the floor, at my daughter beaming with pride over something we'd built together. "Yeah," I agreed. "It really is." And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't pretending.